I still remember the day I stepped into that house as a new bride. The air was thick with pride and silence, and though the walls were old, I thought I could fill them with warmth. I was so young, so full of dreams. I thought I'd found my forever home. I didn't know that behind those walls waited my greatest test, one that would change me forever. My husband, Henry, was kind and gentle. He worked in the city far away, and he loved me in his quiet way. But love isn't always enough when your world starts to fall apart. The very people who should have become my family, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, treated me like I was nothing. Every morning before the sun rose, I would wake up to the sound of my mother-in-law shouting, "Get up! The house won't clean itself," she would bark. I would rush to the kitchen, light the stove and begin cooking. The smell of tea and smoke filled the air, and my hands would burn from the hot pans. I cooked for everyone, but when it was time to eat, they would serve themselves and walk away, leaving me with the dirty dishes and an empty stomach. Sometimes I would quietly pick up the crumbs left on the table when no one was watching, just to stop the hunger. My stomach would ache, but I learned to stay silent, because silence was safer than speaking. My mother-in-law, Martha, had eyes that could pierce through my soul. No matter how much I worked, nothing was ever enough. "You can't even clean properly. You're good for nothing," she would say. And her words, oh, her words, they hurt more than any wound. My father-in-law, Gerald, barely spoke. When he did, his words carried the weight of disgust. "You're lucky my son married you," he once said. "Otherwise, who would take a girl like you?" I would bow my head and keep working day after day, praying for a smile from someone, anyone. But smiles never came. When Henry came home from the city once a month, I hid everything. I'd smile at him, serve him tea and say, "Everything is fine." He'd ask me how I was and I'd reply, "I'm happy." I was terrified that if I told him the truth, he would be angry with me, or worse, he would stop loving me. I didn't want to break his heart, so I broke mine instead. There were days when I was beaten for things I didn't even do. Once I spilled a cup of tea on the table, and my mother-in-law slapped me so hard that I saw stars. "Can't you do anything right?" she screamed. My father-in-law took his stick and hit me across my back. I still remember the sound, sharp, cruel, echoing in that cold kitchen. I cried quietly, my tears mixing with the dust on the floor. That night, when I lay on the cold ground, my body shaking from pain, I looked out the window and whispered to the stars, one day, I'll be free." But freedom didn't come easily. Weeks turned into months. My body grew weaker, my heart heavier. One morning as I was cooking, everything went dark. I fainted right there on the kitchen floor. My mother didn't rush to help me. She just stood there, disgusted. "Don't act dead in my house," she said, and poured cold water on me. When I opened my eyes, I saw Henry standing in the doorway. He had come home early that day. He looked at me, bruised, trembling, lying on the floor, and something changed in his eyes. I saw fear and guilt. He rushed to me and held me in his arms. "What happened to you, Rose?" he asked. My mother-in-law stepped forward, pretending to care. "Oh, she's weak, Henry. She doesn't eat properly." But I saw the truth dawn in his eyes. He noticed how I flinched when she spoke. He saw how I hid my bruises beneath my sleeves. That night he didn't sleep. He sat beside me, holding my hand. And when I opened my eyes, I couldn't hide it anymore. The words came out like broken glass, sharp and painful. I told him everything. Every insult, every slap, every hungry night. I told him how I waited for him to come home because only then I felt safe. He didn't say a word. He just cried. He cried like a child who had lost something precious. And I realized in that moment that he hadn't known, truly he hadn't known. The next morning, the house shook with his anger. He shouted at his parents for what they had done, for what they had turned me into. My mother-in-law tried to defend herself, but Henry stopped her. "You don't deserve her respect or mine," he said. And with that, he took my hand and said, "We're leaving. You've suffered enough." That day, I walked out of that house barefoot, bruised but free. We moved to a small home in the nearby town. It was quiet, peaceful and small, but it was ours. For the first time, I could laugh without fear. I planted flowers outside the window, and every morning, their scent reminded me that I was alive, truly alive. Henry changed too. He treated me like I was made of glass. as if he could somehow erase my pain by holding me close. But some wounds never fade. Sometimes, even now, I wake up in the middle of the night, hearing her voice in my dreams, cold, sharp, unforgiving. I still see the shadows of that house, the one I left behind. But then I look around and see my grandchildren laughing in the garden. I see their innocent faces and I smile. They call me Nana Rose, and they think I'm just an old lady with stories to tell. They don't know that every story I tell carries a piece of my truth. When they ask me why I always tell stories about kindness, I smile and say, because kindness is the only thing that can heal what cruelty destroys. I never hated Martha and Gerald, pitied them, because people who have love in their hearts can never treat others the way they treated me. Sometimes I walk out into the garden, where the wind carries the scent of jasmine, and I whisper a small prayer, not for revenge but for peace. For them. For me. For the woman I used to be. Because now when I look in the mirror I don't see that scared young girl anymore. I see a woman who survived. A woman who turned her pain into strength. I am Nana Rose. And these are the scars that made me who I am.